The room went silent the moment Ethan Ward dropped the napkin on the table. 30 executives sat around the polished glass boardroom table. Screens glowed with financial charts. Outside the windows, Manhattan stretched like a kingdom under his control. Ethan didn't look impressed. He leaned back in his chair and slid the napkin forward with 2 fingers. On it was a simple handwritten proposal. A charity plan. Breakfast programs for underfunded schools. "Let me understand this," Ethan said calmly. His voice carried the quiet authority of a man used to ending careers with a sentence. The junior analyst across the table swallowed hard. "Yes, sir. The proposal suggests a partnership with local schools. The long-term social return could—" Ethan cut him off. "Social return," he repeated. Then he laughed once, cold, short, the kind of laugh that makes a room smaller. "Tell me something," Ethan said, tapping the napkin. "Did anyone here build a billion-dollar company by feeding children oatmeal?" No one answered. A few executives looked down. The analyst's face turned red. Ethan pushed the napkin back across the table. "If people want charity," he continued, voice smooth as ice, "they can donate after they make money." The analyst tried once more. "But sir, the teacher who wrote the proposal." "I didn't ask who wrote it." Ethan stood, meeting over. The room erupted into quiet movement as people gathered their tablets and papers. The napkin remained on the table, forgotten, except for one thing. In the corner of the page was a name written neatly in blue ink. Lily Harper. Ethan didn't notice it, not yet, but in less than 12 hours. He would be sitting across from that same woman, and everything he believed about power would start to crack. That evening, Ethan Ward sat at a corner table inside one of Manhattan's most expensive restaurants. Crystal glasses, soft violin music, waiters moving like ghosts between white tablecloths. Ethan checked his watch. 7:08 p.m. He had already decided the rules. 20 minutes, be polite, leave. Blind dates were not his thing, especially blind dates arranged by his mother. But Grace Ward had a way of asking things that felt impossible to refuse. She was 70, and dying, kidney failure, slow, relentless. When she said, "Ethan, please just meet her once," he agreed. Not for love, not for hope. Just for her peace of mind, so he waited, impatient, detached. At exactly 7:12 p.m. the restaurant door opened. A woman stepped inside. She closed a black umbrella and shook the rain from it. No designer dress. No jewelry, just a simple dark green dress and a worn coat. Her blonde hair was loosely pinned back. A few strands fell across her face. She scanned the room calmly. Then her eyes found his. She smiled, not dazzling, not calculated, just warm, like she had nothing to prove. She walked over. "Mr. Ward," she said softly. Ethan stood automatically. "Ethan is fine." He pulled out her chair. She sat. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. "I'm honoring a promise to my mother," Ethan replied. Her lips curved slightly. "Then we're here for the same reason." That made him pause. "My name is Lily," she said. "I know." She folded her hands on the table. "Your mom talks about you constantly. I know your coffee order, your favorite childhood book, and apparently you organize your socks by color." Ethan blinked. "That sounds invasive." She laughed quietly. "I promise I'm not stalking you." The waiter poured water and left. Lily continued calmly. "I work with your mom at the volunteer clinic sometimes. I teach 3rd grade nearby." Ethan leaned back slightly, studying her. She didn't look nervous, didn't look impressed, didn't look like someone sitting across from a billionaire CEO, which was unusual. Most people performed around him. They flattered. They exaggerated. They tried too hard. Lily did none of that. "I'll be honest," she said. "I didn't dress up for this." He raised an eyebrow. "I noticed." "I also did Google your company," she added, "and I don't have a plan to impress you." Now Ethan was curious. "Then why are you here?" She shrugged gently. "Your mother asked." A pause, and "I trust her." That answer landed somewhere unexpected. Ethan tapped his glass lightly. "So you came on a blind date with someone you know nothing about?" "Not nothing," she said. I know you're very successful. And I know success can mean very different things. Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly. That sounds like a judgment. It's not, she said calmly. It's curiosity. He studied her again. This conversation was not going the way blind dates usually went. Most women tried to impress him, or intimidate him, or flirt. Lily did none of those things. She simply spoke, like two normal people sharing a table. So what does a day in the life of a CEO look like? She asked. Ethan smirked. You mean before or after I cancel meetings, fire someone, and reject 30 emails? She laughed, a real laugh, not polite. I knew emails would be involved. Your turn, he said. Teaching third grade can't be peaceful. Oh, it's chaos, she said happily. 28 kids arguing about whether Pluto is still a planet. Ethan chuckled quietly, unexpected. But I love it, she added. Kids are honest. She leaned forward slightly. They don't care about status or money. They care about whether you show up. That sentence hung in the air. Ethan didn't reply. Some of my students come to school hungry, she continued softly. One boy eats half his lunch and saves the rest for his baby sister. Ethan's fingers stopped tapping the glass. What do you do when you can't fix that? He asked. Lily shrugged. I make sure they feel seen. And if that's not enough, I show up again the next day. Her voice carried no drama, just quiet certainty. Ethan looked down at the table. Earlier that morning, he had laughed at a proposal about feeding children breakfast. The memory flickered across his mind. He pushed it away. The waiter returned with their food. They ate quietly for a moment. Then Lily suddenly called after the waiter. Excuse me, could I have a to-go bag? Of course. Ethan watched her curiously. She hadn't eaten much. When the bag arrived, Lily stood, walked to the tall window beside their table, opened it slightly, and slipped the bag outside. Ethan frowned. What are you? He stopped across the street. A man sat under a construction scaffold, curled against the cold, homeless. Lily walked out into the rain, crossed the street, and crouched beside him. She handed him the bag, said something quietly. The man's hands shook as he accepted it. She touched his shoulder gently, then walked back. No speech, no explanation, just action. By the time she sat down again, Ethan's expression had changed. You gave away your dinner, he said. She shrugged. He needed it more. That was expensive food. That's not the important part. Ethan stared at her. People in his world donated millions. But they never noticed a hungry man across the street. She noticed, without trying to impress anyone, for the second time that night. Ethan forgot to check his watch. An hour later, they stepped outside. Rain fell softly. Ethan opened his umbrella. Can I give you a ride home? He asked. That's kind, she said. I usually take the train. A gust of wind pushed Rain sideways. She sighed. Okay, just this once. The car ride was quiet, not awkward, just quiet. Lily watched the city lights blur through the rain. She didn't check her phone, didn't force conversation. She simply sat there, calm, present. Ethan dropped her in front of an old brick apartment building. She smiled. Thank you for the ride. And for staying longer than 20 minutes. Ethan blinked. You noticed that? She laughed softly. Teachers notice everything. Then she stepped out, closed the door, and disappeared inside. Ethan drove away, already telling himself something. You won't see her again. But the next morning, standing in a cracked schoolyard in East Harlem, surrounded by laughing children, a little girl would point at him and shout, Miss Lily, that's the handsome guy from last night. And Ethan Ward, the coldest CEO in Manhattan, would walk straight into a world he didn't understand, a world where money meant nothing, and where a quiet teacher was about to challenge everything he believed about power. Ethan told himself the school was a coincidence, a routine site visit, nothing more. That lie lasted exactly 10 seconds. Because the moment he stepped out of his black car, the sound hit him first. Not traffic, Not horns, laughter, children's laughter, bright and reckless, bouncing off chain-link fences and cracked concrete like it owned the block. His assistant, Miles, was already talking. Permits are pending, but we can move forward with the survey if we acquire the adjacent lot. Ethan barely heard him, his eyes locked on the yard. A group of kids stood in a messy circle around someone in a green sweater, someone kneeling down at their level, not towering over them, not controlling them, just there. It was Lily. Her hair was pinned back like last night, but looser now. A few strands stuck to her cheek from the mist. A little girl sat on a foam mat near Lily's knees. Her legs were thin and angled slightly wrong, like her body had fought battles too early. A walker leaned against the fence. Lily wasn't babying her. She was teaching her, holding her hand steady, encouraging her balance. And the girl was smiling like she'd just won something huge. Ethan's chest tightened. He had expected to never see Lily again. Instead, she was here, in the middle of his business, in the middle of his city, like life was deliberately mocking his control. Then the little girl looked up. Her eyes sharpened. She pointed. "Miss Lily." She yelled loud enough for the whole yard. "That's the handsome guy from last night." Every child's head snapped toward him. Ethan froze. He was not used to being stared at like that. Not by kids. Not with curiosity instead of fear. "Handsome guy." A boy shouted. Another kid yelled, "Is that your boyfriend?" A wave of giggles exploded across the yard. Ethan's assistant stiffened beside him. "Sir, do you know these people?" Ethan didn't answer because Lily looked up. Her eyes widened slightly. Then she smiled, not embarrassed, not guilty, more like amused, like she was watching a businessman walk into a puddle in expensive shoes. She stood and waved. "Ethan," she called out casually like he belonged here. "Come say hi." Ethan didn't move. His instincts screamed at him to stay outside the gate. This was not his territory. This was not his kind of crowd. Then a small hand grabbed the fence. A girl with a missing front tooth stared up at him. "Are you rich?" she asked. A boy next to her said, "He looks rich." Another kid said, "Rich people are mean." The kids nodded like it was a proven fact. Ethan's jaw tight. He looked at Lily. She didn't correct them. She didn't defend him. She just watched, like she was waiting to see what he would do. And for some reason, Ethan took one step forward, then another. Then he opened the gate. The moment he walked in, the children swarmed him like bees, sticky fingers, backpack straps. A crumpled sticker slapped onto his blazer. He looked down. It was a smiley face with glitter. Someone had written, in messy marker, "Mr. Serious." Ethan stared at it, confused. The children laughed harder. "Mr. Serious," they chanted. "Mr. Serious, Mr. Serious." Ethan opened his mouth to protest. Nothing came out. He didn't know how to fight a crowd this small. Lily stepped closer, arms crossed loosely. "You can't fire them," she said, voice light. That made a few kids laugh. Ethan exhaled sharply. "I wasn't planning to." "Good," Lily said, "because they don't care who you are." He glanced around. The yard was worn down. The fence had rust. The chalk lines on the ground were faded and uneven. This place didn't look like the kind of world his money touched. It looked like the kind of world his buildings erased. "Who's that?" Ethan asked quietly, nodding toward the little girl on the mat. Lily's expression softened. "That's Anna." Anna looked up at him. "You don't look so serious in person," she said. The kids burst into laughter again. Ethan blinked. Then, against his will, a sound escaped him. A chuckle, small but real. Anna beamed like she'd just won. "I knew it," she said proudly. "You have a funny inside." Ethan didn't know what to say to that. A boy dragged him by the sleeve. "Come see my tower." Ethan followed, mostly because the boy didn't give him a choice. He crouched beside a pile of blocks, watching a shaky tower rise. "You're doing it wrong," Ethan said before thinking. The boy scowled. "I'm doing it creative." Ethan paused, then nodded slowly. "Fair." The boy grinned like he'd just defeated a dragon. Minutes passed, then more. Ethan answered rapid-fire questions about his car. One kid asked if he knew Taylor Swift personally. Another asked why adults wore ties if they hated them. Ethan didn't realize how long he'd been there until Lily clapped her hands. "All right, my loves. Clean-up time." The kids scattered with surprising discipline, gathering toys and bags like a trained little army. Ethan stood, brushing grass off his blazer. His assistant was waiting outside the fence now, eyes wide like he'd just watched a shark walk into a kiddie pool. Ethan ignored him. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet. He held out a few bills toward Lily. "I'd like to make a donation," he said quietly. Lily didn't take it. She stepped forward and gently pushed his hand back down. "I don't take money from people who think they can buy their way into this." The words weren't angry, that was what made them worse. They were calm, certain, like she was drawing a line in permanent ink. Ethan stiffened. "Excuse me." Lily met his eyes. "If you want to help," she said, voice low enough that only he could hear, "then show up, be real, ask what we need." Ethan's face tightened. "I am offering help." "You're offering money," she corrected. "Those aren't the same thing." The kids were watching now. Anna, sitting on the mat, looked between them like she was watching a tennis match. Ethan felt heat rise in his neck. No one spoke to him like this. Not employees, not investors, not politicians. Definitely not a third-grade teacher in a broken schoolyard. Ethan forced his voice to stay steady. "You think I'm trying to impress you?" Lily's eyes softened slightly. "I think you're used to solving guilt with checks." That sentence hit like a slap, because it was too accurate. Ethan didn't respond. He could. Lily nodded once as if confirming something to herself. "Come back next week," she said. Ethan blinked. "Next week." "If you actually mean it," she said. "Not as a gesture, not as a story you tell yourself. Come back." Ethan stared at her. This wasn't flirting. This wasn't romance. This was a challenge, a simple one, but it felt dangerous because it required something money couldn't replace. Time, presence, humility. Anna raised her hand like she was in class. "Can he bring snacks?" she asked. Ethan looked down at her. "What kind?" Anna's face lit up. "Fruit snacks," she said. The kids gasped like she'd requested gold. Ethan nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "Fruit snacks." The kids cheered. Lily's mouth twitched like she was trying not to smile. Then she turned away and helped Anna stand, guiding her toward the building. Ethan watched them go. He felt something in his chest that had no clean name. Not attraction, not pity, something else. Like he'd stepped into a room where his usual power didn't work, and he didn't know if he hated that or needed it. Back in his office, Ethan tried to pretend the visit hadn't affected him. He read reports, signed contracts, sat through a meeting about international expansion. But his mind kept flashing back to small things. Anna's grin, the sticker on his blazer, Lily's voice saying, "Those aren't the same thing." Finally, near the end of the day, Ethan did what he always did when he didn't understand something. He investigated. He called Miles into his office. Miles entered quickly, tablet in hand. "Yes, sir." Ethan didn't look up. "Run a background check," Ethan said flatly. Miles hesitated. "On who?" Ethan's voice stayed calm. "Lily Harper." Miles blinked. "The teacher." Ethan finally lifted his eyes. "That's what I said." Miles lowered his voice. "Sir, is there a reason?" Ethan leaned back in his chair. His face was unreadable. "Curiosity," he said. Miles nodded slowly, but his eyes carried a warning. Background checks were a language Ethan spoke fluently. They were control. They were power. They were the first move in any game, but Lily wasn't playing games. And Ethan didn't realize something yet. The moment he opened that file, he was going to learn a truth that would make him feel ashamed. Not because Lily was hiding something ugly, but because she had once lived in his world and walked away from it like it was nothing. And the reason she walked away was about to collide with Ethan's life in the worst possible way. The report arrived the next morning. A thin manila folder, plain, unremarkable. Ethan placed it on his desk and stared at it for a long moment before opening it. He told himself this was routine. He had background checks on almost everyone he dealt with, partners, executives, competitors. Information was power, but something about this felt different. He opened the folder. The first page was simple. Lily Harper. Age 29. Occupation, elementary school teacher. Nothing unusual. He flipped the page. Bachelor's degree, economics. Graduated summa cum laude. Ethan frowned. Economics. He turned another page. The next line made him sit up. Accepted into the prestigious Ridgewell Capital Analyst Program. Ethan knew that name. Ridgewell Capital recruited the best finance graduates in the country. Their analysts became millionaires before 30. He kept reading. Status, declined position 2 weeks before start date. Ethan's brow furrowed. Who walked away from Ridgewell. The report continued. Moved to East Harlem. Accepted teaching position at public elementary school. Registered foster guardian for 2 minors. Ethan leaned back slowly. Anna, the girl with the crooked legs, she was Lily's student. She was Lily's responsibility. He flipped another page. A final note sat near the bottom. Previously engaged to venture capitalist Daniel Mercer. Ethan's jaw tightened. He knew Mercer. Everyone in the finance world knew Mercer. Brilliant, ruthless, and privately notorious for cheating and shady deals. Ethan continued reading. Engagement ended 6 months before wedding. Public statement, none. Ethan stared at the page. She had everything: a powerful career, money, connections, influence, a future that looked a lot like his, and she walked away from it without a speech, without publicity. Without explaining herself, Ethan closed the folder slowly, for the first time in a long while. He felt something close to respect, not the kind he had for investors or executives, a different kind, quiet, heavy. He looked out the window at Manhattan's skyline. Then he made a decision. He picked up the phone. "Connect me with the Ward Education Foundation," he said. 2 days later, a sealed envelope arrived at Lily's classroom. Inside was a grant, large enough to change everything. New learning equipment, sensory tools, a full-time assistant teacher, all funded by a private education foundation. No names, no publicity, no press release. Ethan signed nothing. He assumed Lily would never know, and even if she did, he thought she would quietly accept the help. He assumed wrong. Thursday afternoon. The lobby of Ethan Ward's headquarters gleamed like polished ice. Glass walls, marble floors, security guards in tailored suits. The kind of place where everything moved efficiently and nothing unexpected happened, until the front desk called upstairs. "Mr. Ward, there's someone here asking for you." Ethan didn't look up from his laptop. "Do they have an appointment?" "No, sir." "Then reschedule them." There was a pause. Then the receptionist said carefully, "It's Lily Harper." Ethan's fingers stopped moving. 2 minutes later, he stepped into the lobby, and there she was, standing near the tall windows, raincoat damp, hair pulled back loosely, holding a folded envelope. The moment she saw him, she walked straight over. No hesitation, no nervousness. She held up the envelope. "You paid for this." Her voice was steady, but her eyes burned. Ethan glanced at the letter, the grant. "It was anonymous," he said. "Not anonymous enough," she replied. She unfolded the letter and handed it to him. "I asked around." Ethan sighed quietly. "I didn't expect recognition." "That's not the point." Her voice rose slightly, not loud, but sharp. People in the lobby had started to glance over. Ethan gestured toward the elevators. "Let's talk upstairs." "No," she said, "here is fine." He studied her. She was angry, but beneath that, something else, disappointment. "You meant well," Lily said, "but this isn't how you help." Ethan kept his voice calm. "You needed resources." "Yes," she agreed, "but you didn't ask what we needed." She took a step closer. "You didn't talk to us. You didn't show up. You just sent money." The words landed like stones. Ethan felt every eye in the lobby flick toward them. "This grant would help those kids," he said quietly. "And I'm grateful for that," she said. "But you missed the point." Her voice softened slightly. "You're trying to solve people like their spreadsheets." That stung. Ethan's jaw tightened. "I was trying to help." "I know," she said. "That's why I'm here." She handed the envelope back to him. "I can't accept it like this." Ethan blinked. "You're rejecting a grant." "I'm rejecting a shortcut." The lobby had grown silent. Even the security guards were pretending not to listen. Lily's eyes held his. "If you want to support what we do." Her voice dropped, "Then come back." Ethan frowned. "To the school?" "Yes." "Be present," she said. "Meet the kids. Understand what they need. Then help." Her gaze softened again. "I thought you were starting to understand that." That sentence hit harder than any insult, because it wasn't angry, it was sad. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it again. For the first time in years. He had nothing clever to say, so he did something unusual. He nodded, not as a CEO, not as a man with power, just as someone who had been corrected. Lily studied him for a moment. Then she turned and walked toward the door. Rain tapped lightly against the glass as she stepped outside. The automatic doors closed behind her. Ethan stood there, in the middle of polished marble and million-dollar architecture, holding an envelope that suddenly felt very small. Miles approached cautiously. "Sir, should I cancel the grant?" Ethan looked down at the envelope, then shook his head. "No." Miles hesitated. "Then what should we do?" Ethan stared through the glass doors where Lily had disappeared. After a long moment, he said quietly, "I'm going back to the school." But life didn't give Ethan the chance to go back right away, because the call came 3 days later. At 5:02 a.m., Ethan woke to the sound of his phone vibrating on the nightstand. He almost ignored it, until he saw the name on the screen. St. Mary's Hospital. His stomach dropped. He answered immediately. "Mr. Ward." A nurse's gentle voice. "Yes. I'm calling about your mother." Ethan sat up. His heart was already racing. "She's been moved to intensive care," the nurse said softly. "You should come now." 20 minutes later, Ethan was running down the sterile hallway outside the ICU. His tie was missing. His coat hung half-buttoned. For the first time in years, he felt completely powerless. Doctors spoke in careful sentences. "Complications. Heart strain. We're monitoring her closely." Ethan nodded, but the words blurred together. He sat on a plastic chair near the vending machines, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. He had built companies, controlled markets, negotiated billion-dollar deals, but he couldn't fix this, and that terrified him. He barely noticed someone walk down the hallway, soft footsteps, quiet, until a familiar voice spoke behind him. "Ethan." He looked up. Lily stood there, simple sweater, hair tied back, no makeup, just concern in her eyes. He blinked. "What are you doing here?" She gestured toward the ICU room. "I was visiting your mom." Ethan stared at her. "You knew she was here?" Lily nodded gently. "I volunteer at the clinic with her." Before Ethan could say another word, Lily walked into the room. Ethan remained in the hallway, watching through the glass. Grace Ward lay in the hospital bed, small, fragile. Machines beeped softly beside her. Lily walked to the bedside. She took Grace's hand. Then something unexpected happened. She began to hum, a soft lullaby, quiet, steady. The sound filled the small room like warm light. Grace's breathing slowed, her face relaxed, and slowly she smiled in her sleep. Ethan felt something inside his chest crack open. He turned away from the glass, and for the first time in years, the man who controlled empires stood alone in a hospital hallway and cried. The hospital hallway smelled like antiseptic and burnt coffee. Ethan hadn't moved from the chair outside the ICU for nearly an hour. His eyes were red. His hands rested loosely between his knees. Inside the room, Lily still sat beside Grace Ward. She held the old woman's frail hand while softly humming the same lullaby, not loudly, just enough to fill the quiet. Ethan watched through the glass. His mother's face looked peaceful for the first time since the machine started beeping. The sight unsettled him. Because Lily had done something he couldn't. He had money, power, doctors on speed dial, but Lily had walked in with nothing, and somehow brought comfort into the room. After a while, Lily stepped outside. She closed the door gently behind her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "You've been sitting here the whole time," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "I didn't want to interrupt." "That song," he said after a pause, "where did you learn it?" Lily leaned against the wall. "My grandmother used to sing it when I was little." She glanced toward the ICU. "Your mom asked me to sing it once when we were volunteering together." Ethan looked surprised. "She never told me that." Lily gave a small smile. "She didn't want you worrying about her." That sounded exactly like Grace, always protecting him. Even now, Ethan looked down at his hands. "I'm not very good at this," he admitted quietly. "At what?" "Being helpless." Lily studied him. "You're not helpless," she said gently. "You're just human." Ethan didn't answer. Because, for most of his life, those two things had never felt the same. A week passed. Grace stabilized, not cured but stronger enough to leave intensive care. Ethan returned to work. Meetings resumed, investors called. The world kept moving like nothing had happened, but something inside Ethan had shifted. He caught himself thinking about Lily, about the school, about the kids chanting Mr. Serious, about the way Anna had smiled like he was someone important, and he kept hearing Lily's voice. "If you want to help, show up." He planned to visit the school that Friday. Fruit snacks included, but life had other plans. Thursday morning, Ethan stood at the head of a boardroom table. A massive deal was on the table, screens filled with numbers, executives waiting for his final approval. It had taken months to prepare, millions of dollars at stake. "Mr. Ward," the lead investor said, "we're ready when you are." Ethan nodded. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. The investor continued speaking. His phone buzzed again, then again. Ethan frowned. He glanced down. 3 missed calls, all from the same number. East Harlem Elementary School. A cold knot formed in his stomach. He excused himself and stepped into the hallway. He called back immediately. A shaky voice answered. "Mr. Ward, this is Principal Alvarez." Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. "What happened?" "There's been an accident," she said quickly. "One of our students, Anna Harper, she was hit by a car outside the school." The hallway tilted. "Is she alive?" Ethan asked sharply. "Yes, but she's hurt. We tried calling Miss Lily, but we can't reach her." Ethan's mind raced. "Why are you calling me?" There was a pause. "Anna listed you as her emergency contact." Ethan froze. For a moment he forgot how to breathe. Then instinct took over. "I'm coming," he said. He hung up and walked back into the boardroom. 30 executives looked up expectantly. "Mr. Ward," someone asked. Ethan grabbed his coat. "The meeting is postponed." The investor blinked. "Postponed. Today decides the contract." Ethan was already walking toward the door. "My niece is in the hospital." No one questioned him after that. When Ethan arrived at the school, flashing lights filled the street, police cars, an ambulance. Teachers stood in small, worried clusters. Paramedics were lifting a small figure onto a stretcher. Anna, her face was pale, her leg was scraped and bleeding. Her walker lay twisted on the sidewalk. Ethan pushed through the crowd. "I'm with her," he said firmly. One of the teachers stared. "Mr. Ward." Anna's eyes fluttered open. She looked around, scared. Then she saw him, Uncle Ethan. The name hit him harder than any title he'd ever held. He took her small hand. "I'm here," he said softly. "I've got you." The paramedic nodded. "Are you family?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "Yes." They loaded Anna into the ambulance. Ethan climbed in beside her. The doors slammed shut. Sirens wailed as they sped through the city. Anna squeezed his hand. Her voice trembled. "Am I in trouble?" Ethan brushed hair from her forehead. "No," he said gently. "You're the bravest kid I know." She tried to smile, but her eyes were glassy with pain. The ride felt endless. When they reached the hospital, Ethan refused to let anyone else carry her. "I've got her," he insisted. He lifted her carefully into his arms. She was light, too light, like something fragile. Doctors rushed them through the emergency doors. Nurses whispered to each other. A few recognized him, but Ethan didn't notice. He only focused on Anna, her tiny fingers gripping his shirt. "Stay with me," she whispered. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. 40 minutes later, the chaos had settled. Anna was inside the exam room, doctors stitching the cut on her leg. Ethan stood in the hallway. Blood stained the sleeve of his shirt. His hands trembled. Then the elevator doors opened. Lily ran out, her hair messy, her breath uneven. She spotted him immediately. Her eyes scanned his face, then his hands, then the blood on his sleeve. Her voice cracked. "Is she okay?" Ethan nodded slowly. "She'll be fine." Relief hit her like a wave. Her shoulders sagged. Tears filled her eyes. She stepped closer. Ethan suddenly felt unsure. He had faced billion-dollar negotiations with confidence. But this moment felt different. Lily looked down at his hands. They were still shaking. "You stayed with her," she said quietly. "Yes." "You held her." "Yes." Lily covered her mouth. Tears slipped down her cheeks. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lily stepped forward, not fast, not dramatic, just closer. She looked up into his eyes. And what she saw there surprised her. No walls, no arrogance, just raw worry. "You showed up," she whispered. Ethan exhaled slowly. "I told you I would." The exam room door opened behind them. A nurse smiled. "She's asking for both of you." Lily wiped her tears. Ethan nodded, together. They walked into the room, neither of them realizing yet that this moment would change something far bigger than either of them expected. Because outside that hospital room, someone had been watching, and the story of a billionaire CEO carrying an injured little girl through a hospital was about to spread far beyond East Harlem. By the next morning, the story had spread, not through press releases, not through corporate announcements, through phones. Teachers had posted photos. Parents had shared messages. A nurse had quietly told a reporter what she saw, and within hours, headlines began appearing online. "Billionaire CEO rushes injured child to hospital." "Ethan Ward seen carrying student through ER." "Wall Street executive spends night with injured girl." Most of the articles used the same photo: Ethan standing in the hospital hallway, his shirt wrinkled, blood on his sleeve. Anna's tiny hand gripping his collar. To most readers, it looked heroic. To Ethan, it felt strange. He stared at the screen in his office, uncomfortable. He hadn't done it for attention. He had done it because Anna was scared. But the internet loved stories like this. Within hours, his assistant rushed into the office. "Sir, the board wants to talk." Ethan sighed. "Of course they do." The boardroom was colder than usual that morning. Executives sat in tight lines around the long glass table. Some faces were supportive, others were calculating. The lead investor spoke first. "Mr. Ward, we need to discuss your public involvement." Ethan leaned back. "My involvement with a child who was hit by a car." "Yes," the investor replied carefully. "Your presence at that school is attracting attention." And Ethan asked, "We are concerned it may influence the development project." Now Ethan understood. The land beside the school, the same lot he had visited. His company planned to build luxury apartments there. High profit, fast return. But now the public had seen him interacting with the children, seen him standing in their neighborhood, seen him holding one of their own. The board was worried, because suddenly the land didn't look like empty property anymore. It looked like a community. The investor cleared his throat. "There are discussions online about expanding the school playground onto that lot." A second executive added quickly, "If the city pushes for it, we could lose millions." Ethan's expression stayed neutral. "And what exactly are you suggesting?" The investor slid a document across the table. "We move forward quickly with construction, before the city has time to reconsider zoning." Ethan looked down at the plans. Luxury towers, private rooftop gardens, valet parking, and in the corner of the map, a tiny rectangle labeled East Harlem Elementary School. The yard where Anna laughed. Where the kids built crooked towers. Where someone stuck a sticker on his blazer. Ethan placed the document down. "I'll review it," he said calmly. The meeting ended, but the silence in the room felt different, because for the first time, Ethan Ward didn't immediately agree with a profitable decision. Later that afternoon, Ethan visited the hospital again. Anna was sitting up in bed now, her leg wrapped in bandages, glitter stickers already covering the cast. She grinned when she saw him. "Uncle Ethan." He smiled. "You're looking stronger." "Do you still owe us fruit snacks?" she asked. Ethan chuckled. "Yes." Anna leaned closer conspiratorially. "You're not very scary anymore." That made Lily laugh from the chair beside the bed. Ethan glanced at her. "You started that rumor." "What?" "Children are excellent judges of character," Lily said. Anna nodded proudly. "Also, you carry people." Ethan shook his head. "Good to know that's my reputation." The room filled with light conversation for a while, but eventually Anna grew sleepy. The nurse suggested rest. Ethan and Lily stepped into the hallway. For a moment they stood quietly. Then Lily spoke. "I saw the news articles." Ethan sighed. "I wish they hadn't written them." "Why?" "Because now everything becomes complicated." Lily studied him. "Complicated how?" Ethan hesitated. Then he told her about the development project, about the land beside the school, about the board pushing construction. Lily's face slowly changed, not angry, just thoughtful. "That lot," she said slowly. "Our kids use it sometimes." "What?" Ethan nodded. "I know." "Anna learned to ride her walker there," Lily added quietly. That sentence made Ethan look away. Lily crossed her arms. "So what are you going to do?" Ethan didn't answer right away, because the truth was simple. Two choices: build the towers, make millions, or protect the schoolyard, lose profit. He looked back at Lily. "What would you do?" She gave a small, tired smile. "You already know the answer." Ethan exhaled. "Yes. But that's not the question." "What is the question?" She stepped closer. "The question is whether you're ready to lose something." Ethan met her eyes. "I've lost deals before." She shook her head. "Not like this." Her voice softened. "This time you'd be choosing people over power." The hallway grew quiet. Ethan realized something. This wasn't just a moral decision. It was a test, not from Lily, from himself. Lily studied his face for a moment. Then she spoke gently. "You once asked me why I walked away from my old career." Ethan nodded. "You never answered." She leaned against the wall. "My fiancé worked in venture capital," she said quietly. "Daniel Mercer." "I know him," Ethan said. "I figured you would." She took a breath. His company was funding housing developments in low-income neighborhoods. Ethan felt his chest tighten. "They promised new opportunities," she continued, "but what they really built were luxury buildings. And the families who lived there before were pushed out." Ethan looked down. The same kind of project sitting on his boardroom table. "I confronted Daniel about it," Lily said. "He told me it was just business." She gave a sad smile. "That was the moment I realized something." "What?" "That success means nothing if you're standing on someone else's life." Ethan didn't speak, because every word felt aimed directly at him. Lily straightened. "I'm not asking you to be perfect. Just honest." She looked him in the eyes. "Who do you want to be?" Then she turned and walked back into Anna's room, leaving Ethan alone in the hallway. That night Ethan sat alone in his office. The city glowed outside his window. The development contract sat open on his desk. Millions of dollars, investors waiting, deadlines approaching. His phone buzzed. A message from Miles. "City Council meeting tomorrow about the East Harlem zoning proposal." Ethan leaned back in his chair. He thought about the schoolyard, about Anna shouting his name, about Lily rejecting his money, about a quiet teacher who had once walked away from power. And suddenly Ethan understood something. Real change didn't happen in private. It happened in front of everyone. He reached for his phone. "Schedule me for the council meeting tomorrow," he told Miles. Miles sounded confused. "Sir, as a speaker." Ethan looked out at the city. "Yes." Miles hesitated. "Should I prepare a statement defending the development?" Ethan's voice was calm. "No." A long pause followed. "Then what will you say?" Ethan closed the file on his desk. "I'll decide when I get there." "What?" "Because tomorrow." In a crowded public hall, Ethan Ward was about to make a choice. One that could cost him millions, but would finally answer the question Lily asked him. "Who do you want to be?" The city council hall was packed. Teachers, parents, local reporters, developers in expensive suits, and residents from East Harlem who had lived there their whole lives. Everyone had come for the same reason: the land beside the school. At the front of the room sat the council members, flipping through thick folders of zoning proposals. A large screen behind them displayed the development plans: luxury apartments, private gardens, underground parking, millions in potential profit, and somewhere in the back row. Lily sat quietly. She hadn't planned to attend, but the principal insisted. "This affects our kids," he said, so Lily came, not to argue, just to listen. The council began calling speakers. Developers spoke first. They used polished words: economic growth, urban renewal, investment opportunities. Some residents spoke next. Their voices were emotional. They talked about rising rent, about losing playgrounds, about children having nowhere safe to play. Then one council member looked down at the final name on the list. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Next speaker, Ethan Ward." A murmur rippled through the room. Phones came out immediately. Reporters leaned forward. The Billionaire CEO stood up slowly from the front row. His dark blazer was simple, no tie. He walked calmly to the podium. Lily's heart skipped. She hadn't known he would be here. Ethan adjusted the microphone. The room fell silent. Everyone expected the same thing: a powerful developer defending his project. But Ethan didn't begin with business. Instead, he said something unexpected. "3 weeks ago," he said quietly, "I sat in a boardroom and laughed at a proposal." The room grew still. It was a plan to feed breakfast to children in underfunded schools. A few council members exchanged glances. Ethan continued. "I remember asking a question." He paused, then repeated the words slowly. "Did anyone here build a billion-dollar company by feeding children oatmeal?" The silence deepened. Lily's chest tightened. She recognized the sentence. Ethan looked around the room. "I thought I was being logical." He exhaled, "But I was wrong." "What?" Murmurs spread through the crowd. He rested his hands on the podium. "A few days later, I visited the school next to the development site." He smiled faintly. 28 children decided my name was Mr. Serious." The crowd chuckled softly. Ethan continued. "One of those children is a girl named Anna." Lily's eyes widened. Ethan's voice softened. "She walks with a brace. But she moves through life with more courage than most adults I know." He paused. "And when she was injured last week?" Ethan swallowed slightly. "She asked for me." The room listened carefully now. No contracts. No business strategy. Just a man telling the truth. Ethan straightened. "Until recently, I believed success meant control. Profit. Growth. But those children taught me something." He looked out across the crowd. "They taught me that the most important investment you can make is in people." The council members leaned forward. Ethan turned slightly toward the large screen displaying the development plan. "My company owns the lot beside East Harlem Elementary." The tension in the room rose. Everyone knew what came next. He could approve the towers and walk away with millions. Instead, Ethan reached into his folder and pulled out a different document. "I'm withdrawing the development proposal." Gasps erupted across the room. Reporters began whispering. Cameras flashed. Ethan held up the paper. "In its place," he said clearly, My company will donate the land to the city." The crowd exploded into shocked murmurs. Ethan continued, "With one condition." The council president raised an eyebrow. "What condition?" Ethan smiled slightly. "That the land becomes a permanent community center and playground for the children of East Harlem." The room erupted. Applause, cheers, some people stood. Lily sat frozen in her chair. She hadn't expected this, not from Ethan Ward, but Ethan wasn't finished. He turned slightly toward the crowd. "And I'd like to thank the person who helped me understand why this matters." His eyes searched the room, then found her. "Lily," she froze. Ethan gestured gently toward her. "This is Lily Harper." Cameras swung around instantly. "She's a teacher," Ethan continued, "and the reason I realized something important." The room grew quiet again. Ethan's voice dropped slightly. "Power doesn't belong to the loudest voice in the room." He paused. "It belongs to the person brave enough to care when nobody else is watching." The applause that followed was louder than before. Lily's eyes filled with tears. She hadn't asked for recognition. She hadn't tried to change him, but somehow she had. Ethan stepped away from the podium. The council voted quickly, unanimous approval. The lot would become a community center, a place for children, for families, for the neighborhood. As the meeting ended, reporters rushed forward. Questions flew, but Ethan walked past them, straight toward Lily. They stood face to face in the noisy hall. For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Lily said quietly, "You just gave away millions of dollars." Ethan shrugged lightly. "I've lost worse things." She studied him. "You didn't do it because of me." He shook his head. "No." A small smile appeared. "I did it because you showed me what I was missing." Lily's eyes softened. "And what's that?" Ethan answered simply, "A reason to show up." 1 year later, the old empty lot had transformed. Bright murals covered the walls. Children ran across the playground. Laughter echoed through the new building. The sign above the entrance read, "Lighthouse Community Center." Anna stood proudly in the courtyard. Her prosthetic legs sparkled with glitter stickers. She held a microphone. "Testing, testing." Parents laughed. Teachers clapped. Nearby, Ethan crouched beside a small boy tying his shoelaces. His suit was gone. Today he wore jeans and a rolled-up shirt. Paint smudged his sleeve from helping the kids finish a mural. Across the yard, Lily sat beneath a tree reading a picture book to a group of students. Grace Ward watched from a bench nearby, healthier now, smiling. Later that evening, as golden sunlight filled the courtyard, Lily walked into the empty classroom to tidy up. Inside one desk drawer, she found an envelope. Her name written in Ethan's handwriting. She opened it. Inside was a small note, just one sentence. "Thank you for showing up." Her eyes filled with tears. Outside the window, Ethan was lifting Anna onto his shoulders while she laughed. Lily stepped outside. The courtyard glowed with warm light. Friends gathered under string lights. Music drifted softly through the air. There was no press, no reporters, just family. Ethan stood waiting beneath the lights, a small ring in his hand. He looked nervous. Anna shouted excitedly, "Do it already." Everyone laughed. Ethan took Lily's hands. His voice was quiet. "You didn't change my life with money." He slid the ring onto her finger. "You changed it with humanity." Lily laughed through tears. Anna jumped forward, throwing her arms around them both. "We're a real family now," she shouted. Children rushed forward, hugs, laughter, joy, and as the evening sky darkened over the Lighthouse Community Center, Ethan Ward finally understood something. The biggest mistake a powerful man can make is forgetting that invisible people are still watching, and sometimes they're the ones who change the world.